thank you all again for joining us. And welcome to our webinar, The Business Case for EVs, How EVs Can Give Your Business a Competitive Advantage. Thank you all for coming, and a big thank you to our three speakers who we will introduce in just a few minutes. Before we introduce our speakers, we would like to introduce ourselves and run through some tech-related things. As you can probably tell, only the speakers and moderators are on video and able to unmute ourselves. If you have a comment or a tech-related question, please feel free to put that in the chat. And if you have a question for one of our speakers, please use the Q&A function. We will have time at the end for a Q&A session, and you can find the chat and Q&A buttons on the toolbar at the bottom of your Zoom window. My name is Haley Berliner, and I'm the Clean Energy Associate at Environment New Jersey, focusing most of my time on transportation electrification. New Jersey has made a lot of progress in the electrification space in 2020, and things are changing pretty quickly in the EV market. In January, Governor Murphy signed the EV law, which set goals to have 330,000 EVs on New Jersey roads by 2025, as well as setting goals for charging stations. New Jersey offers up to $5,000 in rebates for individuals that purchase or lease a new EV, and also has a clean fleet electric vehicle incentive program to help businesses transition their fleets to electric vehicles. We will use this webinar today to discuss why New Jersey businesses are transitioning their fleets to electric vehicles and how making this change can actually give your business a competitive advantage. Richard, you want to introduce yourself next?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Haley, and thanks for the opportunity to partner with Environment New Jersey on today's webinar. I'm Richard Lawton. I'm the Executive Director of the New Jersey Sustainable Business Council. NJSBC is a growing network of businesses who are committed to integrating sustainability principles and practices into their business models and supply chains within kind of a triple bottom line framework of people, planet, and profit. As a state affiliate of the American Sustainable Business Council, NJSBC's mission is to advance a combination of market innovation and policy change to create a more vibrant, sustainable, and equitable economy overall. And one of the key areas of leverage in making this systemic change happen is to transition to a clean energy economy and transportation system that involves replacing polluting internal combustion engines with low carbon alternatives like electric vehicles. So that's why NJSBC joined with many other organizations in supporting the passage of New Jersey's EV law. In helping to lead this transition, all three of today's speakers and their companies are demonstrating how creating an EV economy will yield economic, environmental, and social benefits, while also showing how participating in the growth of the EV sector can create a competitive advantage for companies. So I'd like to add my thanks for their leadership and for taking the time today to offer their insights and practical advice with all of us today. Haley, back to you.
Great, thank you, Richard. We'd also like to thank our partners that helped us promote this event. So thank you to the Nature Conservancy of New Jersey and Charge EVC, as well as our speakers organizations, CL Power, Advanced Solar Products, and Core Development Group for helping to promote this event. Next slide, please. Okay, so our speakers today are Scott Fisher, who has served as the co-founder and managing member of CL Power LLC since 2010. CL Power is an energy efficiency diagnostic and retrofit provider based in Kearney, New Jersey. As its managing member, Scott and his team at CL work together with environmental groups, elected officials, and leaders in environmental science and sustainability to develop and promote public-private energy efficiency partnerships in communities across New Jersey. Earlier this year, CL was presented with a 2020 Home Performance Energy Star Contractor of the Year Award from the U.S. Department of Energy. Scott appears regularly on ABC World News Tonight and has contributed to articles in numerous publications, including the New York Times and Realtor Magazine. Our second speaker today is Breck Avalar, the Development Director for Core Development Group, LLC, leading new business growth in commercial and industrial solar power, power storage and dispatch optimization, electric vehicle systems and microgrids, including gas and biogas-fired power generation. Prior to joining Core, he was a principal of Off the Grid Energy Works, Inc., providing design, build, and operation asset management of energy generation systems and projects worldwide. He has led or participated in numerous energy projects for Fortune 500 firms, national governments, and businesses based in North and South America, Europe, Africa, and Asia. Mr. Avalar has a Master of Science from Virginia Tech in Chemical Engineering and is an accredited investment fiduciary, having held numerous FINRA licenses. Last but not least, we will hear from Lyle Rawlings, the CEO of Advanced Solar Products. Lyle is an engineer with over 40 years of experience in renewable energy research, design, policy, advocacy, and business. In 2003, Mr. Rawlings served on Governor McGreevy's New Jersey Renewable Energy Task Force, where he successfully campaigned for the creation of the state's system of solar renewable energy certificates. In 2007, the New York Times Magazine called Mr. Rawlings the founding father of renewable energy legislation in New Jersey, and he remains one of the nation's leading professionals in the field of solar energy. In 2009, Mr. Rawlings was named an Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year. Next slide, please. Simon, next slide. Thank you. All right, Scott, take it away.
Thank you, Haley. Yeah, I was just saying before, as we were getting warmed up, there's not a lot of webinars that are a lot of fun, and this one I've been looking forward to because this beta test has been so much fun for me and for my company. For us to be able to test out the fit and function of an electric vehicle as part of our everyday business operation has been just a wonderful experience, and I'm glad to be here today to talk about it, and I appreciate you putting this webinar together. I think this is something that we're going to start to see a lot of focus on as this electric vehicle market matures and we start to see more and more offerings come to market. And I've seen some comments in the chat. I do definitely have knowledge of a lot of different EVs that are out there, but what we wound up going with is a Tesla Model 3. So I am a little bit more familiar with that, but there are a lot of electric vehicle options out there on the market, and I would encourage, and there's more and more growing every day. So I would encourage you to look around and see all the different options that are out there. Next slide, please. So we have been considering an electric vehicle since for at least the last 3 years, and we signed on to a letter to encourage New Jersey to make these a priority. We are a believer in sustainability within our business. We are a triple bottom line business where it's people, planet, profit, and we are very much focused on our impact on the on our carbon footprint, on our impact in our communities, and our impact in the state. So there were a lot of different moving parts behind our decision to look at electric vehicles while we were considering vehicles to add to our fleet. It's something that really resonates strongly with me. There's the presentation will get into a lot of the different reasons behind our decision-making process, but just the fact that we were able to do this and make it an affordable and viable option for our company to integrate is, I'm glad we're here. I'm glad we're in this moment, and I'm excited to see the sort of the EV market become more mainstream than it has been in the past. Next slide, please. So our first electric vehicle is a Tesla Model 3. We've had it for a little bit over a year. We purchased it in the Tesla store in Bergen County in Paramus. As you can see, we took delivery on June 18th, 2019. The total cost for this vehicle was $42,600. Because it was being put into service, or the intent is that it get put into service, we did not do a lot of the more expensive options that are associated with this vehicle, self-driving or anything like that. This is the base model, if you will. The range is a little over 200 miles. The only option that we paid extra for was white paint, just because all of our vehicles are white, and we wanted to make sure that that there was some continuity in that. Next slide, please. So there were a few different struggles we had. Just to give you a little bit of perspective, what our company does is we perform energy audits. We make recommendations to homeowners about things that they can do to make their houses more efficient. And then if they'd like us to, we install those recommendations at the homeowner's location. So we're on the road quite a bit. Our energy auditing team is out there every day performing energy audits across New Jersey. Our consultants, up until COVID hit, were on the road visiting with homeowners at their kitchen table, but now they're doing that more virtual. So it's taken some of our folks off the road, which is an environmental benefit as well. And then we have our installers who are typically out there in either pickup trucks or box trucks. So we have a fair amount of vehicles that we were tending to. And one of the biggest struggles that we had with those vehicles was the maintenance of them. How do we get arranged for oil changes? Who has what? Making sure that the vehicles come out of service and get all the servicing that they need. Up until this Tesla, all of our vehicles were combustion vehicles. So we had oil changes, differential fluid, lubricants, brake changes, you name it, all the things that everybody, with a car or a truck normally goes through. But we're a small company. We don't have a ton of employees out there. So managing that sort of maintenance process was a little bit of a struggle. And it was fairly often that I find out that, oh, this truck hasn't been in for an oil change in 7,000 miles and it was supposed to be in at 5,000. Oh no, what are we going to do? So just that whole process was cumbersome, and the electric vehicle needs a fraction of the maintenance that that its counterpart does, the combustion counterpart. This vehicle, there's no engine, that doesn't need oil changes. It has regenerative braking, so the car slows itself as you're out and about. So there's much less wear and tear on the brake system. There's tire rotations and some checking the brake fluid is really the standard recommended maintenance, and that's really helped ease up on our administration for the whole for the cars that we have. The other thing that we had to do is make sure that the folks who are out on the road every day have the wherewithal to buy gasoline or to make or to get the oil changes or to do all the things that are associated with a conventional combustion engine. And this car, a lot of this is done in-app. Tesla, in this case, has its own proprietary charging network, and that is associated to an account that bills centrally. So we don't have to issue credit cards or what have you for that process to happen. There are other networks of chargers that are out there that we can tie our employees into without having to have a whole financial structure beneath each employee that's out there on the road each day. Finally, the operating cost is we're not spending what we used to spend on maintenance on these cars and trucks. And for us, maintenance isn't just the actual cost of the oil change itself. It's that we have to take the vehicle out of service, so it's not out there doing what we need it to do each day, which is be a productive member of our fleet. We have to take the vehicle out of service, and the resulting loss in production has a financial impact as well. So the fact that we're able to keep these vehicles on the road and not have to do the level of maintenance that we've traditionally had to do has been a real asset for us. Next slide, please. So one of the neat things about having this car, and I've been doing a lot of the beta testing of how this fits into our world, is that these cars update like cell phones do, at least this model in particular. It's fairly often, maybe once or twice a month, that this car will get an update from Tesla, and new features will be added into it. It now drives for a longer range than it did when I bought it. It performs better than it did when I originally bought it, and it has more features than it did when I originally bought it. And that's not something that you see with a conventional vehicle. That's been a function of different software upgrades that have taken place over the time that we've had the vehicle. From a safety standpoint, there's always the number one concern of us as an employer is the safety and well-being of our employees. This car has extremely high safety rankings, so I was thrilled about that. And because because the company that we bought this from, Tesla, has its own proprietary network of charging stations, that's really served to help us out as well, because again, we're on the road a good amount every day, and this car has about a little over a 200-mile range on a good day, and that changes when it's cold out. So the fact that Tesla has a lot of proprietary charging stations across New Jersey has really helped us out. So if we're on the road longer than expected, we can connect up to one of those. Next slide, please. The other thing that's been great is we're very much in business to B2C, business to consumer. So we attend a lot of events. We go to a lot of Earth Day events. We go to a lot of environmental events. We participate in some years upwards of 24 events a year. And this has sort of been a flagship for us. It's enabled us to have a talking point with our customers that wasn't there before. It tends to attract attention at the events that we go to with it. It serves as more of a centerpiece. It communicates the messaging that we want to resonate with our customers. Many of our customers are very concerned with sustainability and energy efficiency, and this car parallels that messaging. So it's been a real asset for us from that standpoint. We have social media channels that we manage, and what we do is not glamorous. Most of it is done in basements and attics, and a lot of it revolves around insulation and air sealing and heating and air conditioning equipment. So that stuff doesn't lend itself very nicely to the social media landscape. But this car and its messaging do, and that's been a real boon for us as well, is having this to sort of be at the forefront of our social messaging channels or social media channels. Next slide, please. So again, we're a triple bottom line company. We're out there, are very conscious of our environmental footprint. For every energy audit we do, we're out there planting a tree. We're just continuously looking at ways that we can streamline and make our operation more efficient and lessen our impact on the environment. What we do is operates at many levels, and it can take a toll on the environment at large. So the fact that we're not out there spewing emission, at least in this vehicle, resonates nicely with me. Next slide, please. So it's not a perfect world. This is an emerging technology, especially in a business setting. In this particular case, this is the standard package on the Tesla. We needed to do that to fit this car into the budget that we had. As it was, we were pushing the envelope, and I had to, on the budget, this car was going to replace a Ford Transit Connect. And that car is right around 32,000. You factor in sales tax and stuff like that, you wind up somewhere in the neighborhood of 34,000. So this was a considerable amount more than that. But what brought it over the hump was the lack of maintenance and some of the efficiencies that we could gain here. One of the things that was a challenge for us is that there's many cases where we might be on the road more than 200 miles a day, and our business operates by appointment. So range is a very strong concern for us. That said, we wake up every morning and there's a full tank, if you will, a full charge. This car gets plugged in every night, and each day we come out and we have a full charge. And in a business setting, that presents more than one benefit. For our employees, they would get into the car each day. They would depart our installation shop, and they would go out on the road. Well, in each day, they need to stop at a fueling station, fuel up their vehicles. Usually there's a cup of coffee and some breakfast that comes into play, as during that stop. So it winds up being maybe 10, 15, in some cases 20 minutes that they're diverted from their normal operations just to refuel and get ready for the day. The nice part about this is that we're ready to go right out of the gate in this car. Charging networks, we've been really reliant on the Tesla network because not all charging stations are created equal. There's been some times where I've run down very low, and you can see that picture is actually a picture of my car with 5 miles worth of range sitting on the New Jersey Turnpike. So luckily I was able to make it to a charging network, but some of the charging networks that you find that are sort of off the beaten path may be very slow. It could potentially take 12 hours to give your car a 60 to 80% charge. So there's a lot of disparity between the charging stations that are out there today. And as the infrastructure gets built and you have rapid charging stations, that's important in a business setting. We can't sit for 6 hours and wait for a charge. This needs to be accomplished in a finite amount of time so that we can maintain our schedule with our customers. Finally, this was going to be in the third picture under offerings. You can see that that's our Ford Transit Connect, which is the vehicle that this was intended to replace. There's a little bit of functionality loss here. This is a sedan versus a small van. So we weren't able to fit as much equipment into this sedan. Now Tesla has introduced a Model Y, and there are some other SUV offerings coming to market. But this wasn't ideally suited for its intended purpose. And that was something that I factored in at the time, but thought we might be able to get by. But it hasn't worked out exactly the way that I hoped, but there are a lot of other benefits that have come out of it nonetheless. So we're looking very closely at some of the medium and heavy duty offerings that will be introduced later in 2021 and 2022. Ford is scheduled to introduce an electric version of this Transit Connect, and that would make it ideal for our purpose. Tesla's introduced the Model Y. There are a lot of other options that we'll be considering. again, this was purchased more than a year ago, so there were fewer options at market at that time. And we're also looking at options for pickup trucks and vans, because that's what we have on our installation division. So this is a journey. We're very early in that journey. Next slide, please. Funny enough, when we bought this car, I needed to obviously get insurance on it, and the commercial insurance provider that we had at the time would not insure electric vehicles that were being put in service for a commercial purpose. As a result, I had to go shop our entire commercial auto insurance policy and wound up saving a significant amount of money that, interestingly enough, helped offset some of that cost differential that I mentioned earlier. There are a lot of positive benefits that I didn't anticipate that came out of this. Our employees love this car. Everybody gets excited at the chance to drive it. It's a great recruiting tool when it's parked out in front of our building. It conveys a sort of a cool factor that we didn't necessarily have before. You know, again, we do insulation and air sealing, not the coolest business in the world, but this certainly presents a little bit of sizzle on this line of work that we're in. Finally, our customers love it. You know, when we pull up to our customer's home driving one of these, they absolutely love it. Next slide, please. So this is, I tricked Siri, but this is us pulling into a special parking lot, this parking space that's reserved for low emitting and fuel efficient vehicles. It's been a wonderful part of our fleet. I can't wait till we build out on this more and have more of an electric vehicle infrastructure. And I look forward to hearing what the other folks on the call today have to say. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Scott. That was great. Next up, we'll hear from Breck.
All right. Well, thank you, Haley. Thank you, Scott, too. That was a great presentation. You're convincing me I've got to go get an electric car, right? Range is a big worry for me living in a rural area, but well, good. Well, thank you, everybody, for inviting our team to present on this call. We really appreciate the opportunity. I'm going to talk about EV charging and EV charging station options. You know, when you buy an electric car, you forego a lot of maintenance, you forego a lot of oil changes, but you still have to fuel the vehicle, right? So you're not going to buy gas or diesel, but you do have to buy, I put in quotes, electricity. And a wall outlet usually is not sufficient, right? You need something else. Let me tell you just a little bit about our company, Core Development Group. We're a top-ranked solar installer. We're based in Mahwah, New Jersey, but we do work across the United States and a little bit in Canada and Mexico. We have a lot of experience, all of us do, in solar power and a lot of other technologies related to solar power, battery storage, EV charge systems, microgrids, etc. So next slide, please. Again, that's a little bit about us. If you could go to the third slide, please. Yeah, so Henry Cortez is our owner and founder. Henry's listening in on this call. He'll probably pipe up on when we come to questions and answers. That's me in the middle when I had more hair. We needed a professional picture, so there you go. Dennis Murphy is really the EV expert within our team. Without Dennis, Core Development Group would really be lacking when it comes to EV technology. I have a lot of experience in renewable energy and energy infrastructure, but Dennis really is our expert program manager in EV charging design, build across the United States. Next slide, please. So our experience really began when we did a lot of work with Amazon as a corporation. So I have personal experience with EV charger design build for the city of Baltimore and the state of Maryland. But here at Core Development, our primary experience is through working with Amazon. And we've installed over 500 EV charging stations for Amazon. We contribute to the design build of over 1,000. And right now, Dennis and our team are working on setting the strategy goals for EV chargers for Amazon's 2021 and 2022 fiscal years. So we're doing quite a bit on not just small scale, but large scale EV charging. Next slide, please. So let me get into away from the advertising and talk a little bit more about technology. So next slide, please. So there are a wide variety of EV charging strategies. You know, when you got a car like Scott's, you can go with kind of a light duty charging, plugging into either household circuits or other relatively low voltage, low amperage circuits, you know, for a 50-mile, 100-mile round trip, maybe a little more with the higher range that you have there. When you get into medium duty, heavier duty systems, you're really now looking at last mile vehicles, things like delivery vans, inspector trucks, work vehicles, things that need a little bit more range, and they generally return to the same location every day, day after day. In the case of Amazon, they'll send out flights of delivery vans that will come back and they'll reuse those chargers. That's where you get into the heavier duty. We put long haul here, but also heavier duty, where you're trying to charge a fleet, you know, and you have 500, 700 electric vehicles, delivery vans, for instance. You're not going to put in that many EV chargers. You're going to generally put in EV chargers and schedule your vehicles to come back. So fleet management becomes a big deal. Next slide, please. So let's talk a little bit about the categories of vehicle chargers. You'll probably hear about this if you go and get an electric vehicle, or especially if you start looking at heavier duty electric vehicles like delivery vans, Scott's Ford Transit or bigger, right? You're gonna start looking at that. Some cities are looking at electrifying their buses and garbage trucks. Some long haul fleets are actually looking at electrifying their 18-wheeler tractors on tractor trailers. Amazon and Walmart have taken the lead on some of that. So level 1 and level 2 chargers, we started here with level 2. Those are your residential and light commercial. I think, you know, your plug-in Tesla or your plug-in Prius. They're inexpensive, but they're slow. Right? They charge your vehicle. They take a long time to charge your vehicle. Like Scott said, sometimes if you're in a really rural area, you may be in trouble if you're down to 5 miles and you need to get an extra 20 to get home. Some of these light duty systems are relatively slow to charge. Fast charge and level 3 fast charge or level 3 heavy duty charge, higher amperage charge rates, those are great for your commercial vehicles, particularly when you're going to have delivery vans, work vehicles that are going to come back, you know, at the end of the day to the same charging location. You can invest in that more expensive charging infrastructure in order to be able to get your vehicles to charge up faster. And then when you get down to your DC superchargers, those are the chargers that you really are going to need if you're going to deploy a fleet of vehicles. You know, when you're charging up, you know, 30 or 40 delivery vans or work trucks or inspector vehicles, you're probably not going to want to install 30 or 40 charging stations. You're going to want to have stations that can charge up multiple vehicles from each pedestal, multiple fleet vehicles. So these level 3 supercharge systems are going to be a much better choice when you're charging up large fleets. Next slide, please. So this is a busy slide, but I want to go through this. This is kind of a little bit of the meat of our presentation, and I'll go into some recommendations afterwards. There's all sorts of steps to setting up an EV facility for charging. When it's your home, that's pretty straightforward. You know where your electric service is. You're going to have to put in a charger. You're probably going to need to look at evaluating feasibility of a single vehicle, single charging system. It's pretty simple, right? When you get into a facility that's going to need to charge up more than one vehicle, a dozen or more vehicles, you really need to put in a lot more thought to your feasibility. You need to have a site plan, right? So you need to think about where are those EV chargers going to go, right? There's a lot of trade-offs that have to be looked at. Where is your electric service entering the building? And where do you want the chargers to be? Sometimes, 300 or 400 feet of copper bus is not an inexpensive thing to install, right? So you need to be thinking about locating your chargers near where your building's electric service entrance is. You need to also think about traffic flow, logistics. A lot of people put the electric vehicle chargers right at the front of the building. And that's great when you want to highlight your electric vehicles and you want them to look good right up front. But when they're parked there, taking up a lot of space for long times charging, maybe you want them in the back of a lot. So thinking about that can be an issue. Making traffic flow plans to work around that. Applying for rebates is a big deal. We talked about that earlier. When you move into the design build phase, you really need to be thinking about permitting. You need to be thinking about how you're going to interconnect your charging systems to your electric service. You're probably going to need an upgrade to your electric service. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But I think that permitting, design build, and planning for some mechanical, civil, and electrical challenges is going to be an issue. You're going to tear up your parking lot, right? You're going to tear up your building. When you have to put duct banks underground with electric cabling, that is not something that goes over easily. If you're trying to put these in a parking garage, you're talking about even more civil, mechanical, and electrical challenges. So the design build process of installing electric vehicles can be an issue. Commissioning is a very important part too. Commissioning means making it work. And that doesn't mean just the technology, it means the people, right? You need to make the people work with your chargers. The last step is operations, right? So you don't have to maintain your vehicles as much, but you do need to maintain the chargers, right? It can be plugs will wear out, cables will wear out, people run into them, they crash into them. So you are going to have to plan to maintain your chargers. You're also going to have to really make sure that you train your users in the use of these. So it's going to be an important, sorry, it's my timer. I'm after my 10 minutes. So once you've built the system and you've got it installed, you need to return to normal, and that can be a real challenge. So next slide, please. So, in summary, I think some of the very important things to be thinking about are the site-specific logistics. You really need to be thinking about your site and how you're going to be able to put in EV chargers. If it's 1 or 2 or 3, it's not going to be such a challenge. But when you switch over to a fleet, or you're going to be looking at garbage trucks or delivery vehicles or work vehicles or inspector trucks, you need to be thinking about your existing infrastructure and how that's going to work. I think that financial feasibility of switching to electric vehicles is a challenge, but also the financial feasibility of how you're going to install the chargers can likewise be a challenge. When you electrify a fleet, you need to be thinking not only about the vehicles, but also about the chargers. And design build can vary depending on how sophisticated your systems are. So I think that can be one of the biggest challenges, is looking at the financial feasibility and making sure that you factor in the cost of your EV chargers. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. Appreciate your time, and I'll be available to answer questions later when we get to them.
Thanks so much, Breck.
You're welcome.
We're just going to take 1 second for Simon to get Lyle's slides up. We should hopefully be up there in a second, and then we'll next hear from Lyle.
Yeah. Sure, and I could start while the, oops, well, that was actually 1 second. Yeah. All right. Well, let me start by saying that, the folks listening who don't have a lot of employees with EVs yet, or don't have an EV themselves and haven't thought about charging in a serious way yet, what I would say to them is that my experience with EV charging and EVs, and with owning an EV myself for about the last 16 months, has convinced me that electric vehicles are coming on really fast. It's hard for me to see them not taking over the world of vehicular travel. You know, I bought an EV similar to Scott's, although it was the long range model. It's the Tesla Model 3 long range with a 325-mile driving range. And after the $1,700 tax credit, it cost me $42,200 in 2019. Now in 2019, the average selling price of a vehicle was $38,500. So it was only about $4,000 more than the average selling price of a vehicle. And with all of the maintenance and the other cost saving issues that Scott talks about, the cost of ownership substantially less than the average vehicle. And I got a vehicle with a lot of luxury features in the balance. And one that will last a very long time, because I mean, these vehicles can easily last 300,000 miles and have a high resale value. So economically, the drivers are in their favor and will only increase the tendency to be economically advantageous for ordinary people. So I think it's coming. And next slide, please. So I'll talk a little bit about my company, Advanced Solar Products, decision to put in a number of electric vehicle chargers in our parking lot in our building. Now, like Breck, we are a solar development company. We're one of the prominent ones in the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast region. And as of next month, we'll be celebrating our 30th year in business. So we're one of the first solar companies in the region. We do mainly large-scale commercial PV and utility-scale PV, as well as PV plus batteries and microgrids. So you know, that already had us oriented toward batteries and that sort of thing. And we're primarily a professional company, so the people that come here to work every day, a lot of them go out into the field to manage projects, and a lot of them are here as professionals at the office. So giving them the opportunity to charge here at the office, we thought would be a great thing. Now, how is doing EV chargers, or why did we think EV chargers would help us as a business and give us a business advantage? Well, certainly a big thing was that since we have mainly professional employees, the trends toward more and more EV ownership convinced me that this would attract new employees, and the right kind of new employees, the ones that are, you know, solar guys or progressive guys. So they're more likely to buy EVs, we think. So we also decided to provide charging for free to employees, and that would be kind of another benefit or perk that prospective employees would have. And if they have or plan to buy an EV, certainly the opportunity to charge at work would make it more convenient for them to work here. So I think it helps us in terms of attracting the employees we want. Now, kind of the reverse was also true when we announced that we were going to do a project to install multiple EV chargers and the icing on the cake to provide charging for free. Several employees decided to buy EVs on the spot, and a few other employees said that the next time they buy a car, they would buy an EV because we had those chargers there for them. So we were encouraging the adoption of EVs by doing this project. So that's how this has helped our company. Now, it didn't hurt that I was buying an EV and I needed a place to charge. And I happened to live in an off-grid home that was built 30 years ago with a whole 1.4 kilowatts of PV on the roof. This is way back when PV was almost, you know, kind of a scientific curiosity. So for me to buy an EV, I really, really wanted that workplace charging. So it's a little bit of selfish motivation there as well, and hurried it up. Breck is right. The process of planning multiple EV chargers was not easy, even though we were only looking for 8 PV chargers. But even then, we had to plan carefully. Can I have the next slide, please? And we looked into just doing a couple of EV chargers that we could feed from the building. I think without upgrading the building service, we could have had up to 4 EV chargers. But one thing kind of pushed us toward doing more. Tesla has a program in which they will help subsidize the cost of putting in EV chargers, and not just Tesla chargers, but universal chargers as well. Although they do want at least a 50-50 split of Tesla specific chargers. So we did exactly that. We took advantage of their offer, and what they did to help subsidize it is they provided the 8 chargers, which was 4 Tesla chargers and 4 universal chargers, and also the pedestals that they go on. And these are dual charger pedestals, where we only had to build 4 pedestals to accommodate 8 chargers. So here you see some pictures up top. You see the whole lineup of the 8 chargers on 4 pedestals. And you can see there that even during COVID, when most of our employees are still working from home, the EV folks are mostly coming into work, and that's the 4 of them lined up in the background there. And no 2 alike. We have my Tesla, and then a Chevy Volt, a Hyundai Ioniq, and a Nissan Leaf, all charging there. This is actually last Friday. We figure with 8 chargers, pre-COVID, we would have up to about 23, 24 cars in the lot, in the entire parking lot. And that was about as many as we would typically get. And by taking turns at the charger, because these chargers will charge up a typical commute in about 2 hours. So we could easily have 2 or 3 shifts, and with just 2 shifts, we would be able to charge up 16 cars out of 25 in the lot. So we've also future-proofed our workplace, because even if 2/3 of our employees have electric vehicles, we can accommodate that. And we found, in order to do this, if you look at the lower left, we put in a new service. Instead of feeding it from the building, we asked JCP&L to install a new service. It worked out where they installed the new service at no cost, but we had to put in the infrastructure. We had to go up the pole with a new conduit, as you can see in the background on that pole. We had to put in the service panel and the meter, and then the underground trenching to get to the vehicles. Now, fortunately, we were able to do this on the street side of the parking lot, so we didn't have to tear up the parking lot at all. All we had to do is trench through a little bit of lawn, install these 4 pedestals that you see in the middle, lower middle, and lower right, and we got off relatively light. But still, even with the donated chargers and pedestals, it was about a $20,000 commitment to put in the infrastructure to put in that charging. We think that was, that will pay dividends far beyond that cost. So that was our process. And if you go to the next slide, we were fortunate in that we are an engineering firm. So we were able to do the, I see this slide got messed up a little bit, so sorry that it's not great, but we were able to do all the drawings and the engineering ourselves. So it was a simple 3-sheet permit set, very quick and easy to get through permitting, no problem at all. And we did not have to go through site plan approval. We were just we were able to go through zoning, and then construction permits. That was it. So it was just 3 sheets. This was a site plan showing the layout. Next slide, please. This is a single line drawing, the electrical drawing of the installation, also pretty straightforward. And Tesla provided some template single line drawings that made it even easier and quicker for us. And then the next slide. And this is just where we showed kind of a close-up of the site plan and a 3D plan to make it easier for the construction officials to look at it. Hardly even had any questions from the construction officials. It pretty much sailed right through. And as we've said to Richard before, we would make this plan set available to any of the businesses listening who would like to study it and use it as a springboard for them to be able to do this themselves, as well as if anyone can contact for us for advice in terms of the specific process we went through to look at options, decide on them, and rough out a design that ended up with this. So you can contact me through Richard if you would like a copy of this plan set. I'd be happy to mail it out to people to help them out free of charge. Now, next slide. I'm actually wearing two hats today. One is as Advanced Solar Products, my company, but I also lead the Mid-Atlantic Solar and Storage Association. And Breck, I hope you'll become a member because we create the policies that support my business and yours. And we've had a tremendous track record of success, and it's inexpensive. So please join as a member.
Send me the link, send us all the link, and we'll
yeah,
we'll certainly look into that.
Absolutely, because we absolutely need the help. The membership dues are really low compared to what we do, and you know, we're always fighting battles for policy that will help solar energy. I co-founded the association 23 years ago. And we recently changed our name to the Mid-Atlantic Solar and Storage Association because we recognize the increasingly vital role that storage will play to enable us to keep going in solar. And I can tell folks that already we're running into extremely high barriers to keep going and keep installing solar in New Jersey. The worst of it is the bottom third of our state is rapidly just shutting down completely for new solar development. Breck, I'm sure you've run into this too. If you tried to do projects in Atlantic City electric territory, it's just terrible. Whole towns are completely shut down to any more solar today. Other ones are extremely restricted, and nearly the entire third of the state is either restricted or shut down to any more solar. So this shows
we see the same problem in California as well, where a lot of California refuses to accept utility scale solar onto the bus because of so much congestion.
Right. And here, especially in Atlantic City, it's reached down where even a rooftop residential system,
can't get it.
Many places, you just can't do it anymore. So
yeah, store it up in your car, right?
Right. Well, that's it. And, you know, we are aware that many things have to be done in order to meet the requirements of New Jersey's Clean Energy Act. Most of you are probably aware that the Clean Energy Act of 2018 specified that we get to 50% renewable electricity by 2030, and an executive order and the Energy Master Plan require 100% by 2050. We're not going to get anywhere near that with the infrastructure we have today. We have to make the infrastructure renewable friendly, and that is going to be a massive build out to batteries. So that got us thinking in the association about the role of what we call rolling batteries, electric vehicles, and how big was the potential for electric vehicles to solve this growing and now urgent problem. To compare, let's look at the baseline. The Clean Energy Act required that the state build 2,000 megawatts of batteries by the year 2030. We did a study of the potential for electric vehicles that said, when we reach the point where 1/3 of the vehicles have converted to EVs, the total capacity they have will equal over 180,000 megawatt hours. Now, you may notice on the slide that that's two different units. One is megawatts, one is megawatt hours. So you have to put hours back into the clean energy requirement of 2,000 megawatts. If we assume those 2,000 megawatts go in at 4,000 or 4 hours for each megawatt, 4 hours of storage, so that would be 2,000 times 4 or 8,000 megawatt hours that the law requires. Then you compare that 8,000 megawatt hours with 180,000 megawatt hours. that makes it clear the massive, massive potential we have for electric vehicles to help us solve that problem. And it's not a small task. You know, the vehicles currently control the charge. So doing two-way charging, where the electric vehicle battery can not only receive power, but can push power back to the grid to help stabilize the grid when needed. Let's say when clouds roll across a whole area and the solar energy just all of a sudden goes away for a while. And eventually we're going to have, every day, we're going to have an early evening time where power usage is still high, but the sun's not there. The 180,000 megawatts are able to push power into the grid to help us over those times, but we have to have the electric vehicle manufacturers cooperate, and so far they're not. Nissan is with the Nissan Leaf, but other electric car manufacturers are not being very cooperative. We have to think about the consumer. When can we use their batteries and when can't we? There's a thing in our favor there, which is that vehicles generally are parked 96% of the time. So 96% of the time, people are not driving their cars, and they should be plugged in and available to help the grid stay stable. But it is a big task, and one thing that worries me is that the state is getting ready to spend money very rapidly, literally billions of dollars, putting in chargers before we have found ways to make those chargers do double duty and be able to help stabilize the grid. And it shudders me to think that we get 5-6 years down the road and then say, oh shoot, we need all these chargers to go two-way and they're not ready to do so. And it's kind of on another topic, but I also worry that we're not making these chargers future-proof, where when we do have self-driving cars, those cars are going to need to charge during the day, and they're going to need robotic chargers. So another place where we need to be cautious about how much money we put into infrastructure in order to make sure that it's future-proof and doesn't make us spend all that money all over again. But yes.
I'm really sorry to interrupt you. I think
know I'm out of time.
We should have scheduled this for an hour and a half, I'm afraid, but we want to have a little bit of time for questions too. We have about 6 minutes left. So
I'm all done. I'm all done.
No, I don't want to cut you off right now, but any final thoughts on that? I mean,
yeah. Actually, I was really on my last sentence.
Okay, great. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm ready to take questions. Oh, and yeah, go back because this slide shouldn't have been there. Yeah.
I was curious, just a real 10 seconds. The concept of rolling batteries. Our one ran an award from Maryland.
Right.
Breck, you sound like a robot. We couldn't make that out very well.
Yeah, it was something. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe my connection is earlier.
Yeah, couldn't make that out at all.
Yeah.
Maybe you can type it in, maybe to the, and we have quite a few questions in the Q&A box too, so I want to make sure that.
Okay.
So,
I see one just leaped out at me from Peg Hannah. Hi, Peg. Good to talk to you today. Have we thought about developing solar-powered charging stations? Absolutely, that's my business. So sure, I've thought about it. We're actually working on a number of heavy-duty vehicle charging projects. I guess you know that, Peg. And those are ones where we thought about solar charge ports under which the heavy-duty vehicles would park. It's a really good thing to do because there's a coincidence between the time solar chargers put out the most power and the time when it's most needed in the grid. So great question, thank you.
another question was the JCP&L on-site service subsidy and also the Tesla charging station subsidies, Lyle, you mentioned. Would they also apply to municipal public parking lots, or do you know?
I do not know. They call it their workplace charging program. There's no indication that they would not cover nonprofit and municipals, so I would guess so. If anyone is interested in getting in touch with the person from Tesla in charge of the program, if you can reach me through Richard or directly via email, I'd be glad to hook you up with his contact info.
And I went and put my contact information in the chat box for those who'd like to have that. It's great. Another question was, I'm not sure, the V2G is heavily discussed in the industry. What do you think is the #1 hurdle with the implementation? I hope that makes sense to.
Yeah, well, I kind of already said it. It's the cooperation of the vehicle manufacturer right now, I would say, is the top one. And I don't want to monopolize it, but the second would be awareness on the part of policymakers and those who are subsidizing charging that they should make V2G a part of their program ASAP.
Great, thank you. Right, thinking about getting involved with, a solar installer, a solar developer, getting involved in EV charging stations as like an ancillary but related line of business. Part of this is not just EV charging stations and EVs, is a whole supply chain that needs to be developed and built out. So any advice on companies that might be strategically positioned, to be able to kind of take advantage and participate in building out the EV supply chain as a way of expanding their business in a related area?
Yeah, I think that would direct me is still always bad.
Sorry, Breck. Yes, it's not coming through.
No worries. No worries.
All right. I'm going to go to Scott then, if you don't mind, Scott. You covered a lot of good information in terms of just your curve in terms of testing out EVs for your business. Do you have any, for businesses that are out there really thinking about this, do you have like top 3 screens they could, what are the first considerations? What are the primary factors as screens to see if looking at EVs are right for them?
Yeah, and even just to take it a step down from that, I don't know if we've mentioned it on today's webinar, but New Jersey, if you're watching this in New Jersey, New Jersey has up to a $5,000 cashback incentives that's available to anybody who goes out there to purchase an electric vehicle here in the state. So if you're a New Jersey resident and you're considering an electric vehicle, I would be remiss in not mentioning that in this context. I don't know if it came up earlier, but I just want to make sure that I hit on that because we're talking a lot about that today, and there's probably a lot of folks that are on this webinar that are considering that. In our case, from a business standpoint, I would mention use case would be the #1 consideration. And again, our use case, we're a small business, but our use case is sort of in multiple slots. We have sort of a consultative role. We have a sort of a light engagement where we have a little bit of equipment that we bring out to each appointment. It's sizable and is kind of bulky, so we need a sort of a light duty van type vehicle. Then we have sort of your pickup trucks and your box truck, as you get into that light and medium duty segment. So use case is a big thing for us, figuring out, making sure that we're picking up on the right vehicle for the right application. And as I mentioned in my presentation, there were already some hiccups in that process for us that sort of resulted in my being able to drive this around all day. So I'm okay with it. But the use case would be my #1 thing. And I've really learned a lot from Breck's comments about the charging situation and how we're sort of going to need to plan to scale into that. So, but that would be my 2 cents in there.
And just if I can do it real quickly on the rebate program, if people want to do that, start very, very early because you need approval before you start building, and there are barriers if you go ahead and build by the time you're approved, and it's a long and arduous process. The program needs an overhaul. We started doing a lot of work on it, but ended up abandoning that and not using it. So I'm hoping that program gets renewed in a way that's more user friendly. But if you start now, get an application in as early as possible.
I'll give a quick testimony. I have a Kia Niro EV. I took advantage of the $5,000 rebate, and I received a check after filling out the paperwork. So it worked for me. So I'm very happy with it. So
maybe it's already better.
Yeah, I'm happy with the car. I'm also happy with the program. So we're
great.
I highly recommend it. Both.
Good to hear.
So, well, Haley, are we
Yeah, it's just after 1. So thank you everyone who submitted questions, and thank you to Scott, Breck, and Lyle for being here today, and to everyone for tuning in. Sorry about your audio at the end there, Breck, but at least we were able to hear your presentation.
Yeah, that's right. Luckily, yeah.
Yeah. Is it okay with all of our speakers if I share the slides with anyone who may ask? Okay,
Sure.
perfect. So if anyone would like the slides, feel free to email me. I just put my email in the chat. I'm also recording this so I can share the recording with anyone who wasn't able to join us today. And the next webinar in our series on electrification will be on Monday, November 30th at noon on e-mobility. So you can register and learn more information about that by going to Environment New Jersey's Facebook page. Thank you all again for being here. We hope you enjoyed this conversation, and we hope to see you for our next webinars. So have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.